A new survey suggests a quarter of New Zealanders are struggling with the cost of living.
Well, more Kiwis are falling into poverty as the nation struggles with a worsening cost of living crisis.
Elderly Kiwis in our largest city are crying out for help amid the cost of living crisis.
There's now a new cost of our cost of living crisis. The money flowing into charities is drying up. Big sponsors, small donors, forced to close their wallets.
They've had a personal circumstance where their business is not doing very well, so they are unable to continue to support us.
In the same week, they lost other sponsors, all up losing $100,000 of funding, a fifth of their annual budget.
The need is rising, but I feel like the funding landscape's not keeping up with us.
Kia ora, I'm Amanda Gillies, and today on The Detail, charities under pressure amid government funding cuts and a drop in giving due to the financial downturn, but also the role of philanthropy and how you can give back even after you've gone. RNZ's money correspondent Susan Edmonds still donates today, but knows it's getting harder for so many.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we are donating less to charity. I saw reports out of the UK showing that this isn't just an us problem, but it definitely is down. I see even Give a Little has had less donated on its platform in the 2024 financial year versus the 2022, and the number of people donating through payroll giving is down from 2020 as well. But then on the other side, we've got some more fund managers putting philanthropy experts in place, which are designed to help when you get to the other end of your life to work out how you're going to leave your wealth to charities and other places like that. So I think that we're hoping that things will improve, but right now it's a bit of a tough time.
Do you know of anyone, or even yourself, that have cut charity spending because it's that extra cost that you think, I can't afford that anymore?
Yeah, I've kept my donations going so far, but I have heard from people who have cut it as part of a wider, getting rid of anything, particularly regular, that goes out of their account, because things that go out every month or every week can really add up. So people often think, I'll stop that subscription to the gym or whatever, and I'll stop that monthly donation to a charity, because it has that compounding effect of having that bit more each month. And so I can understand why people do it.
We will hear more from Susan later, including the impact the cost of living is also having on spending and retirement, as well as her take on revenge savings. But first, Kirsten Killian-Taylor. She is the head of philanthropy at Perpetual Guardian, a funds manager with more than 700 charities under its wing. The company has just put out its annual report on engaged philanthropy, which looks at the data on charitable giving over the past 12 months. It's a tale of two opposing threads.
First, there is a story of increased giving, particularly through structured philanthropic managed charitable trusts. But alongside of that, we really wanted to acknowledge the difficult times with the reduction in funding, charities closing, and cost of living, cuts in government funding that sit concurrently alongside of this report.
And I want to talk about that first, because how severely has the cost of living crisis affected charities right across New Zealand?
That's an interesting question for us, because we each interact with the charitable sector differently, and we are fortunate enough to be stewarding the intentions of private individuals who wanted to leave a legacy. So 9 times out of 10, our interactions are very, very positive. However, we've seen doublings of application pools, where we have 200,000 to give and $1.9 million worth of applications for project pools that are over 32 million in total. So we know we're only a part of the puzzle, and we are often exposed to snippets of the other parts of that puzzle. So charities coming to us for funding where they'd otherwise be forced to close, organisations unable to continue certain streams of their work, and strategising down to specific priorities. So we've seen job cuts, closures, restructuring, and a hugely increased applicant and funding ask from the philanthropy sector over the last year.
It's heartbreaking because at the same time, obviously, as you're seeing a drop in donations, the flip side is you obviously are seeing that increase in demand. How do you decide who gets the money, and just how tough is that job?
I will confess that there have been tears around the board tables where we sit with our peers and sometimes with subject matter experts in the stewardship of this funding, because we acknowledge that there's never enough to go around. It's a bit of a science, but we're lucky to have really strong held intentions from our clients, and that really assists with the funnel of who is a really good match. Because in this market, if it was too wide, you just wouldn't be able to choose at all. There are too many agencies doing similar things, and they're all equally in need in different regions of New Zealand. And it would be like splitting hairs to split the need between one or another. So we look at their impact, we look at how far their reach goes, we look at their success rates. Some of them have had evaluations from organisations like Impact Lab, and they can speak to a return on your philanthropic investment.
A national charity which helps inspire young people with disabilities through music, dance and performance is closing its doors, with the loss of 14 full-time workers and 100 tutors. The charity has been running for 20 years. However, management says it struggled particularly in the last 2 years with the rising cost of living, increased operational expenses and a significant drop in public donations.
How many have closed, do you think, charities this year, and how many do you turn down requests for charity every day?
Oh gosh. Speaking of weeping, I probably have experience with no less than 10 to 15 charities closing this year, and the most we can ever fund in a grant round is around half. And with our grant round application pools growing exponentially, we're pushed down to maybe 1/3 in some situations. So we make around 2,500 grants a year. And I would say our applicant pool would be double that plus some. So thousands over the course of a year.
The impact, Kirsten, of the government pulling and or reducing their grants and their funding.
City Missioner Helen Robinson says they've asked the Coalition for annual funding so they can keep providing 50,000 food parcels next year. But that looks unlikely.
Midway through this year, Charlie says the writing was on the wall after multiple grants they'd applied for were declined. This year alone, they've been declined over $250,000.
No other option, really. We will cease operating as of the end of the year, and I'm going to cry.
How devastating has this been?
I think the most devastating part of the government pulling funding is that it's like a rug being pulled out from under a lot of these organisations. So we try very hard, and we're not always perfect either, if we're going to remove funding, to do so in a wound down approach. And the government did do that to some extent, to be fair. But for a lot of these agencies, they've been well funded and delivering exceptionally well. But with the need going nowhere, they've had the rug pulled out from them, and they have to create entirely new diversified fundraising strategies to continue that work, which any one of them will tell you is so desperately needed. So I think a lot more engagement could take place with the philanthropic sector, the funding sector, Philanthropy New Zealand, agencies like Perpetual Guardian, when those decisions are made, because we have a really unique view on the sector where we live day in, day out, and it could be a little better connected to make sure we're not leaving people in need on the cliff edge, nor the agencies that are delivering that work, usually well beyond their means and with a lot of personal investment.
Before I get onto the philanthropy, which types of charities are feeling it the most? Is it sort of community service food banks, or are we talking arts and education organisations? Who is struggling the most?
Well, in our findings this year, we were distributing $17.5 million up 46% to social services in general. So that's families in need and everything that goes along with, I suppose, very diverse family dynamics from mental health to food banks and what have you. Education also interestingly increased, but that's a separate bucket. And funding in the health and environment sectors, through our lens anyway, remained fairly steady. And that is partly guided by the intentions of our clients. But the increase in social services, particularly, is diving into the increased need and those increased application volumes that I mentioned. That's the direct outcome. They asked for more, and ultimately we were able to steward more in that direction.
If Kiwis can't afford to give or donate right now, Kirsten says they can leave something in their will for their chosen charity.
I think that charitable giving was born from our will writing business. We try and ask everyone, would you consider leaving a gift to charity? It doesn't matter where you've come from. We believe that every little bit given to a charity via a will can help. Via your will, you could steward a bequest, which is a one-off gift, and you can select the agency, and the person who takes care of the administration of your will make sure that funding lands as per your wishes. Some people even establish trusts, so they become, like the ones we manage, ongoing structured philanthropy that have essentially, but like an endowment fund, left a legacy in perpetuity. They give for as long as that funding can be activated through its investments. Their income every year gets sent through to either organisations or charitable purposes they really feel passionate about. So a will is probably one of the key tools used by Kiwis to get money to things they feel passionate about and give back.
We used to be among the world leaders when it came to giving back.
A few years ago, we used to rank in the top 3 to top 5 giving nations in the world. We've slipped a little bit from that, but there's been a lot going on, COVID, cost of living crisis, etc.
How much have we slipped?
I think we're 9, maybe 10 now. But we were up there with the United States, and interestingly, Myanmar is always at the top.
That I wouldn't have picked, Kirsten, but anyway.
No, myself neither. So must be very, very generous in giving souls. It takes into account time, money, and in-kind giving. So it is a very broad view. So philanthropists are playing an ever important role, but I just don't want people who think that they don't have anything to give to count themselves out. There are a number of ways in which you can activate philanthropy. That old saying about if you have more, bring more people around your table, for example, that kind of thing, all the way through to people granting hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to affect change in our systems. I think everyone plays a deeply important role in the construct of civil society. And we're very fortunate to walk alongside of everyday philanthropists who've had potentially a more moderate sum to give, and also some really high net worth, interesting philanthropists who are trying to invest for greater social change. And if they didn't exist, I fear there would be exponential need, and everyone that works in my team would be losing a great deal of sleep because we're exposed to that need every day.
Are we seeing, though, Kirsten, are more wealthy individuals and corporations stepping up, or are they also hurting in this sort of these financial times, and are they pulling back?
It would be fair to say there is an air of caution. I can't speak for the individual philanthropists because those that I know, they are confronted with asks left, right and centre every day, all day. And so they are completely in the game with sleeves rolled up, trying to do their best. Corporations, I think they have stepped back a little bit. Corporate giving could come off the shelf and turn into something really, really special if it was less anecdotal and more of an investment scenario. We really just hope that we don't see these individuals become, and organisations become so exhausted. It's easy to feel like you're such a drop in the ocean, your little bit doesn't count. But I'm here to tell you it absolutely does. Every step of the way, every little bit, every drop in the ocean is a step forward.
Susan Edmonds crunches the numbers every day as a money correspondent and says right now they don't add up for many. So she can see why charities are taking a hit.
Yeah, I think it must be really tough because it's sort of a perfect storm, right? Like you might have lost your job and then you find that the charity also has got less money to help, and that's not a great position to be in. I've heard from some community organisations that they're also getting less from the pokey money that they used to get as well. So I do think there's a lot of different factors that are all kind of combining in some areas to make things quite difficult.
On top of this, these charities are often topped up by the government. But
Helen Robinson says state agencies refer people to food banks but don't fund them.
When the government funding was stopped earlier this year, we publicly went out and said that we would have to reduce the number of food parcels from 50,000 a year to 20,000 a year. And that message still stands. So without any government support in any 1 year, that is what will have to be reduced to.
some of these grants and funding streams have also been pulled or reduced recently. What can you tell us about this?
Yes, I've also heard that in some cases funding contracts have been reduced to like a per year basis instead of a more ongoing thing, which makes it harder for them to plan as well. Because it can be quite hard to get staff in, say, if you know you've only got funding secured for the next 9 months or something, it makes it harder to recruit than it would be if you had a more reliable income stream, perhaps.
And what about the cost of living crisis? With your money correspondent hat on, how has this changed New Zealand's, say, spending behaviour? Who else is hurting by this?
Well, I think in general we have seen spending pull back quite a lot in the past few years. I saw that in the first quarter of the year, spending was up on durables, but that was largely imported stuff, Kelly Eckold at Westpac tells me, and he said he thought there was also some discounting going on there that was driving it. But in general, the trend is that people are spending more on the stuff that they have to pay for, like our higher rates bills and our more expensive insurance and our electricity. So we have less to spend on the discretionary stuff like, giving to charity and things that we would like to do.
She says the cost of living crisis has seen a growing number of retail and hospitality businesses close, and she's seen an increase in empty stores, which impacts charities who do bucket campaigns on the streets.
Yeah, that's right. They were talking to me about how there's a lot less foot traffic in town now. So I imagine that is a different climate to try to approach people to donate as well. I saw some people collecting outside my local supermarket, I think it was last weekend. I didn't see a lot of people stopping, so I did feel a bit sorry for them.
And people are furiously squirreling away any extra money they may have for their retirement, heeding advice from the government. But it's at a cost to some charities.
We all know the importance of saving for our retirement, even if we don't give it the attention we should. Yep, there are calculators and tools to help us, but how much should we be trying to save?
For a while now, the daunting figure of $1 million has been talked about as the ideal savings required for a comfortable retirement.
But some economists are now arguing that we're actually saving too much and not spending enough now. Is there any truth to that, do you think?
I feel like it might I might regret saying anything that leads people to save less. I mean, as a country, we've got this situation, right, where we maybe have a lot of drain on our finances and perhaps not enough money coming in to cover some of those things. So I think it is prudent for people, particularly the younger generations, to put more money aside for their retirements, because we don't know what that super picture will look like when we get there. So I think it's a sensible idea to make sure that you save enough to cover what you might need to spend in your retirement. I don't think we need to scare people by telling them that they need to save $2 million, because that's probably not achievable for most people, and just has that, it's so hard, why even try factor. But I think, reasonable saving for retirement is something that I feel I must always endorse.
I want to talk to you about revenge saving, which I just love the title of. You've talked about this. What actually is this?
So this is apparently something that we're seeing around the world, which is where people kind of feel a bit like they can't control what's going on around them, and things feel a bit crazy, and so they're just going to focus on looking after their own financial lives and holding on to their money and just not spending it as much as they can. In some cases, people are being quite intense and putting themselves on no-spend challenges where they buy nothing new for a year and that sort of thing. But in other cases, it's just trying to save more, trying to have that security blanket, I guess, of a bit more money in the bank. And then you know that no matter what madness goes on in the world around you, at least your bit is a little bit more secure.
But what's the fallout of that?
Well, yeah, the shops will be hoping that we aren't all revenge saving, because it could get quite bad for the economy, because we do need to keep people spending and get the money moving around. So I think probably in practice, most people aren't disciplined enough to be able to revenge save in a way that affects the wider economy. But we do, I mean, that's probably not the mindset that we want to stay in for too long.
And also maybe dip into that revenge saving money for the charities. Would that be a nice little full circle?
That would be a nice thing to do, or just generally pump up the hospo scene in your town or something like that.
Because Kirsten Killian-Taylor says the philanthropy sector can't sustain the lower funding being dribbled into it right now.
It needs to be approached from all sides in order to be successful. No one's shoulders are broad enough to do it all. So I really hope that we see increased investment across the board. I know everybody, even the government, can't do everything for everybody. But I think collaboration, collaborative philanthropy, working closely, government and non-government agencies, it's the only way we're going to be able to lift these agencies up and deliver to the evolving needs. Even government funding doesn't tend, when it's fully activated, doesn't tend to cover the spectrum of the need. So that's another way in which philanthropists are so important to close those gaps, to enable those agencies not just to deliver, but to be able to evolve and build their capacity alongside of the changing needs of our society. Particularly now, those changes are moving really quickly.
Do you think we could lose perhaps like an entire generation of smaller grassroots charities if relief doesn't come soon?
It's certainly possible if you looked at it from a figures standpoint, but I'm going to say no, only because when you see the giant hearts that we get to see at Perpetual Guardian every day in the stewardship of giving, the applications we read, Kiwis and maybe people all around the world, they have this urge to do better, do well, do good alongside of doing well. And for some reason, I don't see that waning. And I'm very proud to say every day, while someone maybe drops off, another person's surge of giving back picks up. It's just a shame that bridges are burnt along the way that can't enable, I suppose, the absolute flourishing of that.
That's it for today. The Detail is a newsroom production supported by RNZ and New Zealand On Air. Thank you to Kirsten Killian-Taylor and Susan Edmonds. This episode was produced by Alexia Russell and engineered by Jeremy Ansell. I'm Amanda Gillies. Matua.